Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maury. I'm here with my husband Jim, and we are welcoming a guest by the name of JJ Parma this evening from Zero Eyes, and we're very excited about this conversation. I warned JJ ahead of time we might be a little bit difficult because we've got a lot of questions about artificial intelligence and weapon detection. So, JJ, if you would take just a second and kind of introduce yourself and then let our listeners know, like, what brought you to what you're doing right now.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of all ties in. So JJ Parma, I am a 21-year Navy SEAL retiree. Was an enlisted individual back in 1996, put my head down road, got commissioned in 2004, and retired in 2017. So 21 years in all. Started on the East Coast. I was a young kid from Boston, Massachusetts, actually Brockton, City of Champions. My next door neighbor, I don't know if you guys were boxing fans back in the day, but my neighbor 2 streets over was Marvelous Marvin Hagler. People haven't heard that name, the old middleweight champion. Yeah,
Wow.
and it's also the city of Rocky Marciano, the famous Rocky Marciano. So my sister and I grew up with his nephews, great nephews there in Brockton. So yeah, kind of a sports town, if you will, just south of Boston. Left home at 18, went to college, got my degree, and then enlisted in the Navy in 96. So the one promise I had to my parents was, okay, yeah, you can do whatever you want, chase your dreams, become whatever those team guys are, but you got to get a degree first. And so I did. Got a bachelor's in business and then enlisted and came out 21 years later. Was able to get my post-grad school. I know we had a little pre-talk there about your son in ROTC, but I was able to leverage the Navy while I was in. In 2009, I got my MBA from the Naval Postgraduate School. Probably the only 18 months I was away from the SEAL teams in a 2-decade span of combat. So that was a welcome break for me. Was able to get an MBA through the Navy, thankfully. And then, so I got out in 2017, became a Texan in 2020, which was always my goal, to retire from the Navy and then move to probably the most vet-friendly state. I know Florida is going to put up their flag and say we're better or just as good, but I doubt it. The people in Texas are hands down the best and most welcoming, and so that's where I planted my flag, where I always wanted to go. So I'm in Horseshoe Bay, Texas, hour west of Austin. Yeah, right in Hill Country. I'd love to have you
Very
guys
close
out.
to us. Very close to us.
From us.
I saw that you're in Austin, so we'll have to have you out as a guest on our show. Our studio's right there. My wife built a beauty out in Texas. So I'm right now, I'm across enemy lines in the state of California at our secondary location. So we're not set up yet. We're just kind of getting here. Our kids are out here, so we split the time between Texas and San Diego. Anyway, that's my. So I got out in 2017. Worked on Wall Street. I stepped right out of uniform into a suit. Worked for Wall Street for 7 years. Worked for a hedge fund, raising money for alternative investments. I covered the state of Texas. We did police and fire funds, Texas teachers, pension funds. So I would visit all those types of municipal pensions and state pensions and raise money from them, trying to keep their pensions alive. And that kind of took its toll. 7 years living on a plane in a world that is. Well, it's a story for another time, but I left there in August of 24, and in between the only month of unemployment I've had since the age of 13, which now that I think about that is kind of crazy. I should have taken more time off, but my wife got sick of me cutting down trees on the lot next door in Horseshoe Bay. So she said, you got to get a job to get out of the house. I said, okay, we only have so many mesquite trees out there on the property.
Yeah.
And so
Jim
anyway,
always says that he's going to retire, and I'm like, and do what?
It's not a real thing if you like what you do. So you've heard that a million times.
All right. So what took you to Zero Eyes?
Yeah. So that was the last part of my long intro. So in between that, I've been involved in various benevolent programs from the SEAL teams, the SEAL Foundation, and a couple other networking programs that are really great for team guys to connect. And I kind of found through the grapevine, through one of those networks, the Zero Eyes was looking for a Texas coverage person. So they were looking for a California and Texas, oddly enough. And I was in Texas, and called them up, and I said, what do you guys got? I knew a couple of the guys that started the company was founded by 4 Navy SEALs, okay? So back in 2019. So those guys were smarter than me. They stayed in for 8 years. I went the long haul for 21. But they started this great company. I flew up to Philadelphia. I said, let me see the tech. And I walked away from Philadelphia saying this needs to be, at a minimum, in every school system in America. While they fight on Capitol Hill about gun rights and things that they're never going to accomplish, we actually have a protocol that can go in today. And if they can get federal funding for it or state funding, that would be even better, because these school systems, especially in my territory in Texas, and you well know as an educator, the ISDs have no budgets, right? And the state's constantly stripping money away from them and putting demands on them that are outside their budgetary constraints. And so I saw this and I said, this is a mission worth doing. And so it was a no-brainer for me to pick up and run for Texas. So I started in January of this year.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you
We
on.
actually work for a school district that is very close to Horseshoe. Horseshoe Bay is in our district.
Yeah.
Okay.
The kids in Horseshoe Bay come to
We
us.
actually I'm the tech director at Llano ISD.
Oh,
And
you're right next door. Yes, yes.
when I said right next door, I meant it. You know, I used to work in Horseshoe Bay when I was a kid, building.
No kidding.
You know, I was a welder and I built boat docks and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that in Horseshoe Bay. So we're quite familiar with Horseshoe Bay.
Outstanding. Yeah. So I've talked to Llano County. We can talk offline about that. I talked to the chief over there. Yeah. In
Yeah.
fact, my neighbor in Horseshoe Bay, Marquise Cantu, is the great sheriff of Llano County right now. So he's phenomenal.
Yes.
Former Texas Ranger, Marine Corps. He's just got a great background. And to top it off, he's salt of the earth.
Yeah. I've heard some
salt of the
great things about him.
I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know him. I mean, I know the name, but I don't know him. But you know, I'm from here, so I've known the sheriffs and stuff here mostly since I was a little kid. So anyway, continue.
Kin to most of them, actually.
I'm actually related to half.
Yeah. That's what happens when you're born in the Llano Hospital. You know, you end up being kin to everybody. So.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so let's talk about artificial intelligence. So I sent you a list of questions. The first question that I really wanted to talk about, and I mean, because we've had this conversation with like our son and even with students, whenever all the AI detectors started coming out. And I remember one of the conversations that we had with our son was, well, why don't you just like put a towel over it, or you know, you're going to put it in your jacket, or you're going to hide it in your backpack. So one of the questions I had is like, AI can only detect what it can see, and so what happens when a firearm is like partially covered, or it's wrapped in clothing, or it's obscured,
Or something shaped like one, but actually isn't one.
yeah, like I mean, there was just a news article that came out about a false detection because somebody had a clarinet.
Yep. So
That was y'all.
You, they were
So-
like it was a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Might as well hit it first.
Okay, so many layers to what you pointed out about that specific incident, which I just had to address with one of our clients up north, in the Fort Worth area. So, just so you know, I've been running around Texas. I spend my time in the vehicle, right? I drive. I'm centrally located, and Horseshoe Bay can get me to North Dallas and Fort Worth, down to San Antonio, out to Houston. So I rarely do I fly. So I spend time on the roads visiting places I never thought I'd see in Texas, which is great. So I had to explain this to a new client that because the article came up. We'll get into that in a second. So to answer your first question, so the technology is brandished firearms and brandished firearms only. We have our own proprietary algorithm, okay, that we train everything in 3D. So everything's 3D printed. We don't scrape the internet for, generic gun photos or this, that. So the AI is constant. We have our own Hollywood green screen studio up in Philadelphia. It would blow your mind. So we can take all the camera makes and models. Just to back up a little bit, our system goes on already existing camera infrastructure. Okay, we don't install cameras. You don't need to purchase cameras unless your cameras don't meet the minimum requirement. As long as they meet the minimum, we can go on your already existing camera infrastructure, trying to save, especially school systems, money. Once we do that and we can platform, so yes, it's brandished weapons only. There really is no detection software or method right now or protocol that can detect concealed firearms. And because we're in the state of Texas, that's probably a good thing, because 9 out of 10 people are carrying a weapon. Some of the Guardian programs have that inside the schools, right? So SROs sometimes carried concealed. And we do have a protocol for law enforcement, more in the in-depth demo that I have for Zero Eyes. But outside of that, it does not have to be the entire weapon. So we train ours so well. I wish I could show you some detection photos, but we train ours so well that it could come out of the waistband and within a second, with a hand covered over the actual pistol grip, that our AI will pick it up. And we've had some successful detections that way. So it is very, very intelligent. The detections are good. But again, AI is only as good as the operators that are using it and the system. So the first thing I tell these school systems when a competitor may come in with, because now let's face it, AI is moving so fast that some of our competitors and camera manufacturers show up at these schools, and I just feel horrible sometimes because they're taking advantage. We are a military and law enforcement backed company. 90% of our employees are from those two communities, which means I say that not only just because of loyalty and service, but I say that because the culture comes with it. And we don't like to go around selling, snake oil to these schools, but there are a lot of competitors who are out for the bottom line, who don't have a culture like that show up and they win the day just because they got there first and the school doesn't really know what they're purchasing. I say that because these cameras now, well, we can do behavioral, assessments, right? Through our Chinese software, or we can do facial recognition, which the state of Texas does not like. And actually most school systems do not like. And we can do all these things, and we can tell if somebody's in a fight or you get so inundated with all these things that it can do, you lose sight of what the actual detection you need is. And that's a violent, an act of violence about to be committed, which is usually a gun brandished or a knife brandished, which we detect both. So that's what it does. And so I tell schools right away, ask the company, where do the alerts go? If they tell you they go to you, the user, on a cell phone, and there's no other interaction in between you and the company that sells it, just walk away. And the reason I say that is our selling point is not the AI itself. It's the human in the loop that we have. I just did a podcast, and I know you talked about it with Miss Guido about ethics there and AI, which was what attracted me to your podcast in the first place, which you're dead on. You're right on the right line to be talking about ethics and AI. We have a human in the loop that verifies every single detection within 3 to 5 seconds that comes into our operations center. It is manned 24/7, 365, round the clock by former law enforcement, former military. Why is this? Yep. Why is this critical? They're the ones that pull the trigger on the alert, the detection. And to answer your question, Jim, this is what weeds out the false positives. We get a weed whacker, we get a blower, we get a glue gun that looks like a pistol, and in some cases a clarinet, which I'll get to.
I was going to say, clarinet actually is the one I was talking about.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. But our human in the loop can do that. We have an enhancement tool in there. These guys and girls are all trained in 911 correspondence, right? So we take it out of, we become the eyes and ears immediately. Once we detect that it is a threat, in 3 to 5 seconds, we will alert the client and we will pick up the phone. We are the 911 dispatcher, and we get on the phone with 911. We track you through your camera system, and we become eyes and ears and information for the police. Think about any school shooting, any workplace shooting, Aurora, Colorado, Brown University, anything that goes on. The one piece that's lacking, and what takes the police response 18 minutes or 36 minutes, or in the case of Uvalde, over an hour and 20 minutes to do their thing, is lack of situational awareness. They have no idea what the description of the shooter was. They don't know what the guns were, how many people were involved. ZeroWise picks that up with the human in the loop, and we maintain that posture throughout the entire scenario. We don't hang up the phone until 911 says the scene is secure. It is a phenomenal product that we put out. We have very, very, very low false positives as the AI continues to learn, but that human in the loop is always there to enhance that photo, make sure that it is a threat. Now, do you have any questions about that?
No, I mean, the second question I'd had is, basically about how you talk to the schools about those limitations, and you've already really covered that. Yep. Sounds like you're just completely upfront with the school systems, ahead of time. And the fact that somebody is there, the human verification layer and how that's necessary, I think that's great. So, yeah. And you're right. I mean, the other question I was going to ask is, what kinds of situations do you need human verification? And what you're saying is that every situation gets human verification.
Every detection that camera, because we don't have access to your live feed. We don't want it. We don't need it. Right. So that's a privacy issue in and of itself, which helps with hospitals. We only get the detection photos. So when a detection comes in, we'll look at it, either verify it's a threat, or in the case of, let's say, law enforcement. Let's say we train our AI not to pick up a holstered weapon. Believe it or not, it's that good. But sometimes there's a modification. Maybe it's an extended magazine. Maybe it's an odd weapon that they had a modification done to. The detection comes through. In that case, we will not pick up the phone and call 911. We will call the client, send them the detection photo. Can you verify law enforcement on the property at such and such camera location? They will say yes. That'll be the end of the call. The school systems love that. They know the system works. They like verifying that they had law enforcement. Maybe they didn't know they had law enforcement. Either way, they get that detection. Same with a false positive. We may send them the detection photo, say, hey, we picked this up last night. Looks like our Zero Eyes Operations Center said this was a guy with a weed whacker. Just wanted to let you know. They love it, right? It's a test for the system, but their cameras are always monitored. But again, we don't have access to the live feed, and we don't need it.
I'm going to go off script for 1 second.
Go ahead.
So the Clarinet situation.
Yep.
I was a counselor, and then I was an assistant principal, and so I know what kids are capable of doing. What do you do when the student basically tries to trigger
That's what happened with the Clarinet.
a false positive? I think that's what happened with the Clarinet. I think that's what came out, is that the student was basically banishing the Clarinet like it was a weapon. Is what I'd heard.
We have students that, as to Marty's point, we have had students where even on our content filters on the web, they know what trigger words that they do, so they literally try to trigger. These are kids with their brains not fully developed apparently, and their self-control isn't either, and they think it's funny.
Right.
So,
to type in, how do I make a bomb, or, whatever.
So,
and then it triggers, and then that email
Yep.
goes out, and then we're on a lockdown.
and it's incredibly
then
disruptive.
You don't have to take that final exam until a couple of days later, so do you think that students will figure this out and then start shutting down school systems because they've figured out a new way to do things?
That is a possibility. So this is one of the discussions that we run into. And again, I'll address the Clarinet issue because it's more in your face than you actually thought it was, thanks to the media. But we'll go over that. But
It definitely is. Yeah,
Yeah.
the media
loves stuff like
that
this.
kind of stuff.
I'll go over this happened Sunday, so I'll go over how on a Sunday phone call that I get. But yes, so that is the problem. And so we love the press, right? Zero Eyes. What company doesn't like press? It's good for us. Some schools are quick to jump on it. We offer the option to schools, and I always tell them. Sometimes they'll have a private conversation with me after the fact. Superintendents and heads of security, directors of IT. Look, you can do press. It has pluses and minuses to everything, right? You can announce it and it becomes an automatic deterrent. And therefore your immediate purchase has a pretty good effect on return on investment, right? So you're getting a pretty good return on investment there. Just keeping people away from the school. Now, the opposite is also true. You then get maybe overachievers, overachieving firebrands, if you will, that will come in and say, well, I'm going to beat that system. And this will be my claim to fame, or whatever. Combine it with whatever act of terror they may or may not have been plotting. And so that's the other side of the thing. So people look to defeat the system, or in your case, in what you guys are talking about, maybe the kids just want to mess with it.
We've seen it.
Yeah. And really, that's to me, that's just as bad as pulling the fire alarm, right?
See, and that's what we, of course, as you mentioned earlier, the state of Texas is really good about doing what we call unfunded mandates. And one of those unfunded mandates, of course, is the panic button. We had to put a panic button into every single classroom or every single area that had students that could be present in a group. And so when I was in charge of that project, one of the things I made absolutely sure to do was to educate the student population as to what the consequences were going to be if they pressed that panic button.
And we've had good luck so far.
And so far, we haven't had a student. I think we had one that thought he'd accidentally, because he bumped into it or something, and but they were panicked because we let them know.
It's like pulling the fire.
It's like pulling the.
It's not a joke. It's not funny.
Actually, it is a felony.
Yeah.
It is a felony to push that panic button.
Yep.
So, I'm hoping that people who are putting in the AI gun detection is actually doing quite a bit of education to the students.
Right.
And I'm hoping that if, like the student with the Clarinet, I hope that there was a consequence for that student if it's true that they did that on purpose.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Again, I won't verify whether they did that on purpose. They did do it on purpose. Well, it did happen on purpose. Whether it was to defeat the system of Zero Eyes is unknown to me, and I'll tell you how. So let's talk about that. So, and yes, you're correct. But here's the thing with them trying to do it, like pulling up a Clarinet. Normally, if that was just a Clarinet and they were holding it out in the open, and they were trying to, let's just say they were quote unquote trying to defeat the system. That's where the human in the loop would have picked that up. We can tell it's a
Right.
Clarinet, would have taken it. Now, this photo, I can't show you the photo. We did show it to the client that just asked questions about it online. We had an online call yesterday. They were super happy with our explanation. And it's a big university emphasis, so they thought it was exactly how we explained it to them, but they just wanted to know because the media blew the story. So media, I got the Google alert early, then I got the phone call from the client, and they said they want to talk on Monday about the detection. So I read the article, and it's exactly so. This was the case of, and every article on it since then has just copied the original local article in Florida, and it seems to me that, which is when I read it right away. Unfortunately, whoever wrote the article just was one of those folks that wanted to write an opinion piece on how bad technology is, right? So immediately they went after the tech. The story, and they showed, I don't know if you saw the original article, the picture they showed when they said, oh yeah, AI launches on a Clarinet, was some random girl with a nice dress in a Clarinet. And that was the image that they used, okay?
But that wasn't the actual image that it cued off of.
Was it not only not the actual image, it wasn't even close. So I'll describe the photo, and I'll...
One of the ones that I saw, it actually looked like the AI generated someone holding a Clarinet like a gun.
That may have been.
And it was so obviously AI generated, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
So I'll describe
it to us.
I'll describe the photo right now. So it's taken from a ceiling camera.
360?
It may have been. I'm not sure if this was, but it was looking down the long hallway. And so there's two individuals in the photo. The camera is right on top of the individual that had the Clarinet. So the individual was dressed in camouflage fatigues, a black combat vest, a combat style hat, had the Clarinet in black boots, by the way. So it looks like someone's going to shoot up a school, and had the Clarinet with the horn end. The large end, I'm not sure what my Clarinet technology or linguist would be, but that was tucked under the arm with the long piece of the Clarinet, and he's literally pointing, standing there down a hallway. And so it looks like a gun, and he looks like he's dressed to go to town. Now, behind him, about 40 feet, is another student who does not look disturbed, nervous, or scared at all.
But has their phone out recording?
Nope. Just walking behind this individual 40 feet, not a care in the world. So this is where the ZOC comes in. The report actually came out to the client. We're going to dispatch this. And we always send notes, or we're on the phone with the client saying, hey, we're dispatching this. It doesn't look like the student, and this is verbatim, doesn't look like the student behind this individual is nervous at all. This may not be a threat. But this looks like it could be a possible weapon in the school, whether it's a real weapon, toy gun, or not. We're going to dispatch this photo. You guys can make the call whether you want to lock down. The school got the photo, and they came to the same conclusion that this might be worth locking the school down. So they chose on their own. We don't lock schools down, right? So we just send you the threat. We just send you the detection photo. They made the decision to lock the school down. And when the police finally arrived and did the investigation, they realized that this was dress-up day of some sort for, I don't know if it was the band or not, but it was dress-up day. This individual dressed up like a combat soldier and decided to use his Clarinet as a weapon. So what you didn't see in the article, school was super happy about the detection. They said, yep, I would have sent that to me. We're glad you did. The sheriff's department, who spoke very highly in a press conference, which was not reported, said this was a great detection. We would have done the same. Now we know about it. We know what the capabilities of the product are, and we are super happy with it. So
the student probably doesn't need consequences, because it sounds like what was happening is if it was a dress-up day, and that he was just goofing around, and he was just like...
Well, the thing that... I've been a tech director at Lano for 20 years, and Marty's been there almost as long as I have. And the one thing that people forget when it comes to these types of things, because I deal with security cameras. I've talked to people about weapons detection, gunshot detection. We put, the bulletproof glass, the whole thing.
Yep.
A school is not a prison, and we don't want it to be one. Therefore, we are going to make mistakes. We try to err on the side of caution because, the consequences of being wrong are so high that we don't, if they wouldn't have locked that school down and that kid would have legitimately been a threat, then not only would people have gotten killed, but the lawsuits would have lasted forever. There would have been so much going on for that. So we try very hard to put in things that are non-obtrusive. In other words, we don't put in bars on windows. We don't put in razor wire. We don't put in all these things because we don't want to turn the school into a prison.
Right. I don't blame you. You shouldn't.
And so there, Maury and I educate people all the time on AI, and AI, like all tools, has limitations. The panic buttons that Maury mentioned, we have panic buttons. The battery or something malfunctions on the panic button, we could end up with police there, not just because a kid pressed it, because the stupid button malfunctioned. It could happen. But we decided it's worth the risk because first of all, the state of Texas said we had to have it. But second of all, because, we legitimately see a purpose for this. So it is difficult when someone has an agenda against something that isn't in a school district, but they're trying to get their 15 minutes of fame.
Right.
It is difficult for us to try to balance, to not turn it into a prison, but keep the kids safe. How do you do this?
Right. So I'm going to say two things. The first thing I'd like to say is that if you go to any second or third grade teacher at any school system as a police officer or somebody who is, a superintendent, that second or third grade teacher can give you a list of the 10 kids that are going to be an issue all the way through high school.
Right.
So, the teachers know who those kids are going to be, the ones that you're like, okay, we're not quite getting that impulse control
we can't
program.
Use that with AI.
I know, but where do you think the ceiling is with this technology? That's the last question I was going to ask for today. We are almost out of time. Jim, I'm going to ask you the question first because you know a lot about artificial intelligence. So we're doing all this detection, and it sounds like Zero Eyes is very, very well trained. The AI is very well trained.
Well,
can it go further?
My personal opinion is it doesn't need to go a lot farther. I mean, the problem with technology is this idea that you can incrementally make it better forever. Everything has a limit to how good it can get. No matter how good the AI gets, the fact is if you, with your 20 years of service, all that you know about weapons, if you were on the campus, you could still make a mistake. You could still think something, you could have thought that kid with a clarinet had a weapon. So there is a limitation as to how good it can be. The only thing you have to ask yourself is the diminishing return. What is the penalty, or what happens if there is a false detection? In other words, the thing you're doing that I didn't know you were doing that I like is that you keep a human in the loop. If you did not have a human in the loop, then I would have zero the interest in your product because I don't believe you should ever take the human out of the loop. Because I think the wider context that a human provides when you have an AI tool that's helping you is so important, you just can't do without it. So I think the ceiling is you continue to improve your models to where it gets better and better, which you said you have a studio you're doing that with. You have to understand that some people are going to try to fool the system. As long as you've got that human in the loop, though, the odds of them being able to fool it are not as high. The question, of course, then is how the hell do you afford to have somebody 24/7 watching a school? But that's a different discussion. So
yeah. Are y'all prepared for that? Are y'all prepared for that growth?
Oh yeah. We can scale to capacity. We are ready for the growth. And you're absolutely, Jim nailed it on the head, right? Everybody thinks that, to use your verbiage, that it should be incrementally increasing to get back. No. AI is moving so fast that nobody's stopping to put checks and balances on it. They're just letting it happen. And so if you could just imagine, and that's why I tell the schools, if somebody comes to you and says they don't have nobody's doing the operations center at scale like we are. There's just nobody in the business that's doing it. Just because they don't have the background and they don't want to put the effort in, and they just want to make a profit on a school system that has a budget that they could care less where the money comes from, right? Couldn't care less about the budget. We do, and we're sensitive to it. And can you imagine getting false alarms all day long? At some point, you become desensitized. It's like my Nest camera in Horseshoe Bay. Somebody's probably breaking in right now. Like, I have no idea because there's so many alerts for every raccoon or deer that moves. Well, that's what's happening with some of our competitors, and schools end up canceling their contract at the end of a year. And they call soon. If I haven't got to them soon, and that's where we weed out of it. And so would you rather have that one lockdown where it was potentially an incident? And who knows? Some of these guns can be hidden in cameras and actually clarinets and briefcases. And so, maybe having tested your system and having a lockdown drill and people going, okay, thank God, wow, that was a weird photo. System worked exactly like it should, to quote the sheriff. And so they were, super happy. I'd rather have that once a year or once every 2 years than every other week or 3 days a week, right? Locking down. So there is a cap on it. The ceiling is to keep the human. It's almost like walking a dog. It's like walking a pit bull. You need the human to pull on that leash. You don't let the pit bull walk around by itself.
Right.
And that may be a terrible analogy to compare it to dog walking, but it's very similar. That human can't be removed. And I think that's where Zero Eyes nailed it at the beginning. And that's why our market share is pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at AI, the problem that most people have with AI is that there are the people out there who are determined that the AI can do everything a human can do.
Yeah.
And there are cases, and because I work in a school district, I can name lots of them. There are cases where you just simply should not remove them. You mentioned false detections. We looked at vape detectors at one point.
Yeah.
But we talked to other school districts. There was so many false alarms on most of them that they simply ignored them. I mean, it's like, why? Same thing with our panic button. If our panic button went off, because our panic buttons don't call 911 because we have a limited 911 dispatch system in Atlanta. There's not enough people. Ours call the police directly on the radios.
On the radio.
So, but we did that because of a limitation of Llano County just didn't have enough money to put a bigger system in. But if that thing called them every other day, there would be a problem. If I put your system in and it had lots and lots of false.
Like you said on the phone, as an assistant principal, if my cell phone was going off all the time because of this detection, then you're exactly right.
I have things that go off all the time that I ignore because I'm getting all these pop-ups, kind of things.
Last thing you need. Such a strain on resources.
It is. And unfortunately, our resources are dwindling, as you've said, and the more strain, it desensitizes.
That's the problem. The biggest problem is, for a while we had a kid who was jogging around town and he was dressed kind of similar to what you're talking about, except he put the high altitude mask on because he looked like, I don't know what he looked like, but we locked down the school twice because of that guy, because it was freaking out people that, saw him jogging by the school. He looked like he was coming to attack the school. So, but you know what? You live with the false alarms as long as they're not so frequent and so ridiculously obvious.
Right.
Yeah.
And I certainly would not, we don't have your system in our school, and I would not put in any system that just texted me when it saw a picture, when it saw something.
Right.
By the time I looked at my phone and figured out whether or not it's even real, the threat is either completely done lots of damage or it's completely passed.
Nor do you have time in a panic situation when you're running the school and you're on the ground. Do you have time to be looking at your phone every 2 seconds? Well, that's what our job is, to replace that, to link you up or the security folks with the police, 911 on scene with accurate description and location, done. And then they prosecute. We don't make any ground force calls. We don't get involved in the tactical piece, obviously. We just stay as eyes and ears. And I think that's the way it has to be very simple, right? We're using AI in a very simple way. And if it gets complex, forget about it. Half the teachers don't even remember when they panic. Remember, your pulse rate goes up, your heart rate goes up. People think they saw things. In the Parkland shooting, which was the genesis for this whole company getting started, by the way, there was one of the teachers did an interview months later and said they actually thought the kid was wearing a yellow pants and a green shirt. We know that he was wearing black pants, maroon shirt, and a black tactical vest. Wasn't even close, but that's natural, right? Having been in combat for 20 years, this happens regardless whether you're on offensive, defense. You see things you think you saw, you panic, you're in the red, you're not thinking straight, and you're trying to lock down at the same time. You're not going to be looking at a phone trying to track your own situation. You need somebody backstopping that to do that for you, and I think that's what we do best.
I had a friend that went to Virginia Military Institute, and he said that he saw people that were Olympic-level shooters, that as soon as you put them under stress, they couldn't even hit the target, much less the center of it.
Right.
So I do worry about that because we talk a lot about emergency drills. We do emergency drills. We talk a lot about, we're more focused on making sure we have all the students than we are. Believe it or not, everybody has their role in it. And one of the biggest roles the teachers have is making sure everybody's accounted for, not where the shooter currently is.
Right.
And so if you're looking at your phone, and the same thing with the administrators, you leave the law enforcement, you need them there to deal with the actual threat. You need us to figure out where the students are, make sure they're in safe places. You get them back to the parents, that kind of thing.
Do what you're trained to do.
Yes.
JJ, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. I am looking forward to hearing more about what you guys are doing. I'm definitely going to be watching in the news to see what happens.
You always drop by the school.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
not far
Come see
away.
us. We're not
Yeah.
too far away.
No, I'd love to. I'd love to. I really wanted to get it. Maybe another time. I'll have you guys as guests out at our show. Really want to talk about the AI school that's down in Austin. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
about the Alpha
Well,
School.
I am on the board of directors for the Austin AI Alliance. And so Alpha School is one of the people that does a lot of stuff with us.
Yep.
So absolutely, we can have a conversation about Alpha School.
We're
Yeah, that'd be
skeptics
great.
on that too.
We are a
We're
little
skeptical. As much as we like AI and as much as, I've created AI systems for our school district to use, my biggest goal in life is to make people skeptical of it so they don't look at it as the holy grail that's going to fix all our problems, but as
Right.
yet a more sophisticated tool that can help us fix problems in new and interesting ways that we couldn't do without it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm so
Absolutely.
curious to get your take on that because I got walked around. They were looking at Zero Wise, and so
Mhm.
I went and walked the school, and I had a bunch of questions for you on this, but I'll get it at another time. 'Cause I'm
Sounds
curious.
good. We'll come by the school.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
going to say goodbye to our listeners, but if you want to stay on for a couple of minutes, we can continue the conversation. But right
Yeah.
now, we are out of time for AI in Action. My name is Maury. I'm here with my husband, Jim, and we hope that you guys have a marvelous rest of the week.